Brenda, if in a moment you will introduce the folks with you and begin your remarks by answering the question, can you operate within the mayor's proposed budget? The floor is yours.
Good evening.
Excuse me, before you begin,
Yes.
let me tell you, Lady Wynn is so conscientious that you have on your desk a replacement page that fixes a couple of typos that she noticed, we didn't notice, and she is so conscientious she has fixed those. The floor is yours.
Good evening, Budget and Finance Committee Chair Councilman Stein, members of the Budget and Finance Committee and Metropolitan Council. I'm delighted to be here today, and I'd like to start by introducing the people who are here with me today. Joining me today, to my left is Tammy Drake, Director of Business Services, and to my right is Mike Taylor, Chief Deputy Clerk for Motor Vehicles. Other members of our leadership team are in the gallery. And to answer the question as to whether or not I can live within the mayor's recommended budget, I can live within that budget. So I'd like to...
The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm proud, again, to be here today, and let me open by thanking you for the opportunity to be here and for all that you do on behalf of our city. I am proud to highlight just a few of the accomplishments the office has realized in the past 21 months that I've been on the job as county clerk. One of the improvements that citizens will notice the most when registering or renewing their motor vehicles is our transition from the issuance of 2 decals to 1. This was made possible through legislation passed by this council in November of last year. The benefits of this change are twofold. First, it reduced our printing cost, and it has significantly reduced the number of man-hours previously required to manage that inventory. Another improvement that citizens will note, and it's a benefit to them, I believe, and that's the instant printing of duplicate titles. We've worked with the Tennessee Department of Revenue to obtain this certification, and we are now able to print duplicate titles and hand them over the counter to customers instead of having them wait several weeks to receive that title by mail. A final accomplishment that I'd like to mention is the implementation of bulk scanning of motor vehicle applications that we submit to the Tennessee Department of Revenue. Our use of bulk scanning saves paper, so we're constantly trying to save some trees. It eliminates the need to physically store the records, and it allows our clerks to have immediate access to the data. As it relates to projections, we expect to exceed last year's numbers in our motor vehicle division. Most of the increase is one that I talked about last year, and it's a result of the responsibilities that we assumed when the Department of Revenue discontinued walk-in services on Vantage Way. And as an example, last year we went from issuing 700 duplicate titles to now issuing 12,400 last year. This year, we've already exceeded that 12,400 number, and we anticipate issuing approximately 15,000 duplicate titles. We're also processing more temporary operating permits and military applications, services that were formerly provided at the Vantage Way location. Our numbers in marriage, notary, and business services are on target, and we're seeing a significant increase in the number of passport applications. We anticipate that the number of individuals making applications for passport services in our office will continue to grow, especially in light of the U.S. Postal Service's recent announcement that they were transitioning to an appointment-only system. Our greatest challenge continues to be managing the foot traffic at the main office and some of our branches. We're working with the Department of Finance, General Services, and the Mayor's Office of Innovation to examine the logistics of our traffic flow and the implementation of a more advanced queuing system. I'd also like to thank you, members of the Metropolitan Council, for approving 4% funds to support this effort. I'd also like to point out before I close that during this past fiscal year, our office returned to General Services a Metro vehicle and a trailer that had been part of our fleet. We returned these assets because we felt they could be better utilized by another department. I'd like to close my comments by acknowledging and thanking the staff of the County Clerk's Office for all they do on a regular basis to support the citizens of this great city, and I will try to answer any questions you might have.
Brenda, when the state obviously closed the title office and they shifted responsibilities to you, did they transfer revenue with that when you assume more those responsibilities?
The revenue does, the revenue that does follow the titles that we issue. We do receive a certain level of funding for the titles that we print, but again, that funding goes back into the general fund.
I assume there's probably speculation amongst clerks across the state. Is there any indication the state is thinking about transferring anything else to localities in the near future?
Well, it continues to be an ongoing dialogue between county clerks and the Department of Revenue, those responsibilities that are being handed off. One of the things that we've been talking about and that we were pretty excited about was the ability to instant print decals or decals on demand. The problem with that is the expense that's going to be associated with it, and the more we dig into it, the more we identify additional expenses that will follow it. And so I think that the Clerks Association is trying to dialogue and we're in discussions with the Department of Revenue on how that can be transferred, if it's transferred to to the county clerks with the appropriate funding that will support it.
Councilwoman Berry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. I have a couple of quick questions. You mentioned that you were able to save on reduction of decals. Do you actually have a savings number?
We saved about $24,000 in printing costs.
Great. You also had mentioned that you have implemented a couple of new things. One of the things that I wanted to highlight, which I don't think you mentioned, was the kiosk for driver's licenses. I don't know if that's been because I just turned a certain age and I had to go renew my driver's license, but I just wanted to say that it was very efficient. And have you found a lot of people using it? We
found a lot of people use our driver license services. It helped for us to be able to get the kiosk in place because we used to have to staff driver license services with about 1.25 FTEs. So it's been helpful to be able to have the kiosk.
And in that 1.5 FTEs that you staffed, have you allocated them to other services, or was that just were you able to actually reduce staff?
It's a little bit of both. We lost a couple of positions last year, and we've been able to yes.
Okay. And you mentioned the passport applications, which then leads into the staffing question. With the proposed potential increase in individuals seeking passport applications, have you all done any kind of predictions on what kind of staffing you may need to address that service?
We will likely need additional staff to address that. In fact, when I left today, or toward the end of the day, I went out and there were probably 10 people out there waiting. And I spoke to one person in particular. She was trying to get passports for her children. She wasn't a Davidson County resident. And so I need to point out that individuals from Middle Tennessee utilize that service. They pay for it, but they utilize it. She was, again, there to get passports for her children, but she called the post office and realized that it was 4 weeks out before she could get help. We've cross-trained a number of our staff, and so we can back things up with staff, but we're probably going to need to double the level of staffing in that area. I only provide one full-time person in that area because, again, it's not something that we're mandated by law to do. It's a service that we make available to the citizens of Middle Tennessee. It is, however, becoming quite utilized. And in fact, I mean, we make about $25 per transaction. And if we take photos, we make an additional $8 per transaction. So we're generating revenues. And I expect, again, to see a number of people begin to take advantage of that service.
And my last question is just a shout out to both Janice and Gabby for all the amazing work that they do. They are always very responsive, and I really appreciate all they do and all that you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Weiner.
Thank you, Chair. Brenda, thank you so much for your loyalty to Bellevue and Cleanup Day. We appreciate it.
We will be there on May 31st.
Absolutely.
From 9 to noon with the emissions testing company doing renewals on site.
And it's so well received. Everybody loves it. I have one question.
Yes.
You use a bulk document scanning program. Does that take the information from each field, first name, last name, address, et cetera, and plug it into its own document, or is it scanning the entire document in its entirety without the ability to piecemeal that information out?
It's scanning the entire document, and those documents are then in turn submitted to the Department of Revenue. So no, it's not pulling out individual names.
So is any of your staff having to do individual keying in
No.
of information?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Claiborne.
Thank you. Brenda, for the benefit of folks who are watching, and folks do watch this, would you explain about what you provide in terms of driver's license function?
If you need to renew your driver license, there is a kiosk there in our office. We have a staff person who is on site and who will assist you if you need help. But it's pretty user-friendly. You can renew your driver license there on the spot. When you leave there, you won't leave with the license. You will leave with a document, a piece of paper, indicating that you have renewed your driver's license, and the driver's license will be mailed to you by the Department of Safety.
So there's no additional fee to that beyond what you would do if you went to a state spot or anything like that, right?
That's true. Yes, sir. There is no fee. We don't associate a fee with that
Right.
at all.
Okay, thank you. I hope that more and more folks will take advantage of that. I know it means more traffic for your office, but I think that's certainly something that's needed considering some of the problems that have existed in the past with state spots. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Tigert.
Thank you. Council Lady Berry's using the kiosk. There's obviously no age limit on that.
No, sir, not
Okay.
at all.
There's a question in there somewhere?
Yeah, it's coming. Just some levity occasionally, Mr. Chair. Are the prices that you charge for passports and different services, are those set by state statute?
For passports, it's not. For other things, yes, but not for passports. I believe that we have an agreement with the U.S. Department of State as to what we can charge for the passports.
When were the last time the actual cost to perform those services compared with what we're bringing in? Has there been updates in these at any time?
I don't know that I can answer that question, but I can get you that information.
That would be interesting to see, because we found in this government as costs rise and whatnot, occasionally you have to adjust copying cost or whatever. Tell me how weddings are handled in your office as compared to the previous clerk.
We on every Thursday morning that we're available, we marry individuals who show up and present to be married. This past Thursday, we performed 13 ceremonies. We try to keep it to about 12 because that's as many as we can manage, what with the individuals getting married and the family who want to come with them to participate and witness that wonderful celebration. But we marry folks, and we shake their hands and give them a hug and tell them to have a very beautiful life.
Is there a fee associated with that?
There is absolutely no fee whatsoever associated with that.
Thank you. And it might be cross-trained on passport renewal.
We're going to train Mike on marriage and notary.
I'd like to see that too. Thank you.
Councilman Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to give another shout out to the kiosk for the driver's license. Not only is it speedy, but they let you redo your picture if it's not good. And I'm so grateful for that. That's a great thing. I think this may be a question for Rich rather than you, but I'll start with you. I'm seeing a pattern of internal service fees being dramatically reduced in every department that's come up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We'll have
I was late.
No, that's fine. We'll let him do it again
Okay.
after this is done. He'll
Fair
do
enough.
that in between. He'll go over it once again. Yeah, because
Thank you.
you'll see it
Appreciate
in
that.
every single budget.
I did.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your being here. Mr. Garrett, if you'll come down, and while he is coming down,